Good morning, everyone. My name is Ian Charlotta. I will be the hearing officer for San Francisco Public Works. Cerise is the clerk of this hearing. This hearing is being recorded via Zoom and will be available afterwards through a link on the San Francisco Public Works website, sfpublicworks.org. As this is a virtual hearing, there is no sign-in sheet, so if you'd like to receive information about the results of this hearing, please send an email to the email address listed on the hearing notice, which is through the Bureau of Urban Forestry. This public hearing is being held to consider 5 appeals from property owners or public protests regarding denial of street tree removal requests, the removal and/or replacement actions that were approved by staff but protested by the public. The 5 orders on today's agenda are Hearing Order 208660, which is to consider the removal of 1 street tree with replacement adjacent to 1208 Stanyan Street. Staff has denied the removal and the applicant has appealed. Next item is Hearing Order 208661, which is to consider the removal of 2 street trees adjacent to 1610 Geary Boulevard. The trees are on the 1701 Post Street frontage with replacement on the 1500 block of Laguna Street. Staff has approved the removal. The public has protested. The next item is Hearing Order 208662 to consider removal of 9 significant trees with replacement on private property at 175 Junipero Serra Boulevard. Staff has approved the removals and the public has protested. Next item is Hearing Order 208663 to consider the removal of 1 street tree with replacement adjacent to 2726 Pine Street. Location will be replanted if no conflict with utilities. City to locate a replacement site and mark on delayed report if tree cannot be planted in site. Staff has approved for the removal and public has protested. Next item is Hearing Order 208664 to consider the removal of 1 street tree with replacement adjacent to 1493 Kansas Street. Staff has approved the removal and the public has protested. My job as a hearing officer is to gather the facts for the hearing item, listen to your testimonies, and help our Director of Public Works make determinations. I will not be making any decisions today. Instead, I will forward the findings from this hearing and make my recommendations to the Director. The Director will make the final determinations. When the Director's determinations are made, the Department will notify you of them. Therefore, if you want to be notified, please do so via the email. The hearing will proceed as follows. For each case, I will ask the Public Works staff member, in today's case, Sarah Stacy, to speak first and present the case. I will then allow the property owner or applicant to speak, then any member of the public or witness who wants to speak, then the department if the department would like to address any comments, and then the property owner or applicant again if that person has any rebuttals. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak. The clerk will monitor time for all speakers and give notifications if you're running short or over time. Comments and questions should be addressed to me and not the department or the applicant. If you cannot finish your comments within the allotted time, you may submit written testimony to me by the end of this hearing. You can either just put in I guess if the chat's not working, email Cerise, or you can email the email on the announcement and that'll get forwarded to me. If I feel the question is warranted, I will ask the question. After all comments are completed, I will close the item. We will now begin the hearing. Prior to hearing appeals from property owners regarding orders on today's agenda, members of the public may address the hearing officer on matters that are within the department's jurisdiction but on today's agenda. Do we have any matters for discussion that are not on today's agenda?
We have a hand by Josh. Josh, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Just a quick procedural note that I'm not aware of any public hearing in any commission or council with the city of San Francisco that allows for public comment in the form of rebuttal. More generally, just for everyone on the call, including the hearing officer, San Francisco has the smallest urban canopy of any major city in the United States. This was determined in our 2014 urban forest plan. That same plan called for 50,000 new street trees by 2034, which comes out to roughly 2,500 per year. Our 2021 climate action plan, which was formed as a result of calling for a climate emergency, asked for 40,000 new street trees by 2040, or roughly the same amount of trees net per year. And it also called for policies of tree preservation by this year, by 2023. This year, the Urban Forestry Council released a report that found that over the last 6 years, rather than gain 2,500 trees per year, we have net lost nearly 1,300 street trees. Additionally, while we have $19 million set aside to annually remove trees and fix concrete, we have $0 set aside annually in our city budget to actually water and plant new trees. There was a big press release that we recently got a grant from the Inflation Reduction Act of $12 million for our city's urban canopy. The city put out a press release on this and how this is going to create 100 new jobs. I've reviewed that grant proposal and it sought nearly $50 million. The proposal was to plant 10,000 new trees, create 100 new jobs, open up a new tree nursery, and do all of this with $50 million over a period of 5 years. We didn't get 50 million, we got 12, or roughly a quarter of what we asked for. The city's press release still says we're going to create 100 new jobs. So if we do the math, this means our $12 million will probably create 100 new jobs, open a new nursery, and probably plant about 10 to 20 trees. There's no budget or grant coming to save, let alone grow our urban canopy. So we need to be doing everything possible to preserve what we have and to grow what we've planted. Tree canopy is not a question of a nice to have. It's a matter of our city's own climate emergency that resolved that these trees are a need to have if we want to be resilient and healthy and practice environmental justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Do you have any other hands up?
I don't see any other hands at this time.
In that case, I'd like to begin with the first case, which is hearing order number 208660. Please proceed.
Good morning, I'm Sarah Stacy. I'm with the Bureau of Urban Forestry Public Works. I'm an urban forestry inspector. I just want to thank everyone for their participation and public comment today. And thank you to Joshua Klipp for his comment on the first agenda item. I agree and uphold everything he said. The San Francisco Urban Forest is one of the smallest urban forest of any other large metropolitan city. Also correct in that the city budget does not often grant us hardly any funding or budget to plant new trees in order to reach that goal of 50,000 new trees by 2040. Our staff, we are very excited about the IRA funding, the 12 million and the new trees that that will allow our department to plant to grow the urban forest. But I do agree that we are up against some funding issues and we will have to strategize and be creative on how we can grow the urban forest. And I will also just emphasize that tree protection and the preservation of trees for the urban forest, for protecting that green infrastructure that is so critical to San Francisco as a place of beauty, as a place of health for residents is so vital. So I agree with all those things. Our department, kind of a goal of our department is to ensure safe, clean, and green infrastructure of the public right-of-way. That's what our inspection staff are tasked with through our enforcement responsibilities and our permit review. We have a mission to preserve and grow the urban forest, but we also have to do that with balancing the safety of the public right-of-way. So making tough decisions on when to remove a tree that's in decline or when it becomes hazardous. And then also we have a lot of competing interests, of course, with new development, new people moving into the city, the need for housing, a lot of competing things that trees become in conflict with. And so those sometimes present tough decisions where we have to find compromises or ways to mitigate the loss of those tree benefits and how do we capture that back. As was said, our department does have 19 million preserved each year in set aside funding for the maintenance of the urban forest. This is for existing street trees, for the pruning of those trees, and for sidewalk repair related to tree roots. And that's for approximately, we believe, a population of 125,000 street trees or a little bit more. And just this this map shows our pruning schedule. The gray area is all parts of the city that we've completed our first cycle. Going forward, this cycle will be approximately every 5 to 7 years. And we acknowledge and recognize we still have about a third of the street trees to still prune. And we're working on issuing some mass contracts to kind of catch up and meet some goals so we can finish that first cycle by 2025. We have a tree ordinance, our Article 16 of the San Francisco Public Works Code, that establishes our authorization and standards for basically protecting trees and overseeing the urban forest, kind of rules and regulations and practices to help us enforce and protect the urban tree canopy, which is defined as, for public works, our jurisdiction is the public right-of-way, so the street trees, but we also have protection over landmark trees and significant trees, which we do have one case today that includes significant trees. Just some recent updates as from February 2022. These are important updates I just want to briefly provide here. If the department is removing a tree, our ordinance does require a replacement to be planted within 120 days. And if it is not planted within that time period, we are supposed to be adding it to a delayed replacement tree report. And that includes if a tree cannot be planted in situ or replaced in that same location. We need to record that as well as a tree to be planted in a nearby location. Just for transparency, at this time, our department does not have that tree report in place. Secondly, a property owner or an applicant, if they are granted a removal permit for the removal of a healthy tree, we have to require a replacement tree of equivalent value or impose an in lieu fee. Again, this is kind of to capture or to mitigate the loss of that tree benefit so that we can capture that money into funding so we can continue to grow the urban forest and replace it. So as just a basic, very simple example, where a tree has to be removed for a garage and it does get approved, this is a tree in good condition. The owner would have to pay the difference between the appraised value of that subject tree minus kind of the standard cost of a replacement tree. And we base that on an in lieu fee structure. For a 24-inch box tree, that's the size of the tree being planted and what it would cost to water that tree for 3 years. So that in lieu fee value is kind of the mitigation cost for the loss of that tree being removed. But we can also use an appraised value structure, which is often used for larger, more mature trees. So we can capture the full benefits of that tree if it were to be approved for removal. This gets a little bit more into depth, but I just wanted to outline some of our own internal removal criteria for us as a department. I'll try to go through this quickly. We will approve the removal of a tree if it's dead, dying, or not thriving. So all of our staff, our inspection staff, we have tree risk assessment credentials and are certified arborists. So we do look at trees case by case. We inspect them for their health, structure, and vigor. And we will approve a tree for removal through the permit process if it is a tree with poor structure or if it's in poor condition. generally speaking, a property owner or an applicant should not have to apply in this case. The city should just be removing these trees in poor condition if it's a street tree as part of our routine maintenance. Second removal criteria, if a tree is smaller than 4 inches in diameter, in construction shows that it has to be removed for the construction project, like for a new driveway as an example, we'll approve that as well, because that small tree can be easily replaced in kind. It's kind of a easy 1-for-1. And that would only apply for very small trees, and where construction, it's demonstrated by the applicant that construction has to remove that tree for the project. And then kind of a third criteria is if the construction will destabilize the tree, either through the impact to the roots, or if the tree is a species that does not tolerate construction very well, such as the blackwood acacia. We will approve those removals in that case where we foresee that the tree will be destabilized. But again, here the applicant has to show a really strong, has to have very sufficient supporting documentation to show that construction cannot work around the tree. And again, in these cases where the tree is healthy and where we can appraise the value, we try to capture that through this process. And if a tree does get approved through the hearing or even through Board of Appeals, we will try to capture that appraised value as part of the mitigation. Oh, so thanks for your time for listening to that precursor. To get started, this is Public Works Order number 208660. This is to consider the removal of one street tree with replacement adjacent to 1208 Stanyon Street. Our department, we denied the removal of this tree and the applicant appealed. You should see an image of the street tree. This is a London Plain street tree at 1208 Stanyon Street. The applicant applied twice. They applied in November of 2022 and again in July of 2023. I believe the agent, maybe an agent, the applicant had switched agents. That explains why they applied again. They were trying to get follow-up on the original application. We did deny this permit, the removal of this tree. The reason the applicant stated on the removal application was that they had to remove the tree for a PG&E utility, a gas line. But we denied it based on their plans. We did not receive sufficient information to show that the tree needed to be removed for that gas line. I will show those plans as well. The tree is about 40 feet tall, has a 15-inch diameter. Our inspector rated the condition as fair. It is a mature tree. He did note that the tree has kind of reduced vigor, and that can be just due to its age. But our department, does not see this tree as hazardous. It's not a removal candidate. It's not in significant decline, so we did not approve it for removal. This is another image of the tree shown in the summer. This is a few years ago where we can see the property was under construction for an ADU. You can see the London Plain tree here in its canopy. It's a significant large mature tree on this street. We denied it. And then lastly, to show the plan that was submitted, this is the plan that we have on file. Here you can see the tree basin shown in the blue box outline. This is the existing tree. They showed that they needed to remove this tree and replace it to the, I believe, the south direction where a curb cut was being removed. But here they didn't indicate really any good reason why that tree had to be removed or shifted. It even says on the plans, no new utilities or upgrades. And so just to be consistent with other cases, the tree is in fair condition. We did not have sufficient reason to approve this tree for construction. It's a mature tree. that we believe can be preserved, and the removal is unnecessary. Thank you.
Mr. Charlotta, the staff representative is finished with her presentation. Please bear with us just a moment. I'm going to see if I can reach the hearing officer.
Sorry about that. Okay, before we hear from the property owner, I had a question about moving the trees. So when you say if the tree is healthy, what other than utility conflicts would constitute a valid reason for approval of a request to remove a tree? And then second, is there when you say it needs to be nearby on the property, are there guidelines that you know project managers can use to try to gauge where a tree needs to be or how densely they can be compacted? Like if there's a line of street trees, can they be condensed into a corner green space pocket?
This is Sarah Stacy with Bureau of Urban Forestry. I'm not quite clear. I understood the two questions. One, we generally will deny the removal of a healthy tree. That's just kind of standard. For construction related removals, the applicant has to provide a lot of documentation that shows why they cannot work around an existing tree. They need letters of support from like PG&E that the gas line can't be shifted to any other location in this case. I'm not, I don't want to speak too broadly, but also want to address this case specifically. But I guess I want to just emphasize that the department will not approve the removal of a healthy tree unless there's really strong documentation that the construction will either destabilize the tree or again, the construction cannot work around the tree. And here we just did not receive sufficient information as to why a gas line has to be put here, why it can't be put where the curb cut, where the driveway is being removed.
Okay.
And then the second question, I wasn't quite clear on. We do have planting guidelines that state where trees should be planted, and it offers kind of a list of spacing requirements from street infrastructure like streetlights, utilities, gas, water, sewer, furnishings, and also the placement of trees for Vision Zero and to protect sight lines for safety.
Okay, is that information available on Buff's webpage, or can you direct
Yes, all
potential?
that information is on our website.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the clarification. All right. So can we, I guess now we'll have the applicant.
If you're the applicant, can you please raise your hand? I don't see any hands at this time.
Okay. I'll give him just another moment and then. Okay, I guess if the applicant is not here to appeal the decision to deny this removal, let's move on to the next order item. So hearing
Or
order two. Sorry.
did you want to open it to the public before closing the item?
Are there any comments or questions from the public?
Yes, we have a hand by John Nolte. Go ahead, you should be able to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So first, this hearing has been publicly noticed, and also I'm sure that the applicant, property owner, has been notified of this hearing, and they should have done the due diligence. They should be here and speak on their behalf, and or have PG&E or their contractor, whoever is involved here, present at this hearing. And since there's no documentation for the removal of this tree, I agree with Buff's understanding of this tree on Stanton Street not to be removed because there was no proper documentation for its removal. Therefore, I request that the hearing that this item be as on the as stated on the agenda, to be request the removal be denied to the property owner. Thank you very much for your time, and have a okay.
Thank you. And we have Josh. Josh, you should be able to speak.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you
Yes,
hear?
we can. Yes,
Oh,
we can.
okay, great. Yeah, so thanks. I'd like to draw the department's attention to 88 Arkansas, which was my very first tree removal objection way back in, I want to say 2016, and it was the same issue, which was removing a tree for installation of a gas line. In that case, the department approved it. I appealed it, and in my appeal, I pointed out two things. Number one, that the department should be looking more carefully at the plans to determine whether the removal was actually necessary, and two, that the gas line in that instance could go under the driveway. So what I want to point out here is this what I'm seeing as evolution and growth and progression. And I want to thank the department for really looking carefully at this application and for denying this application for the same thing that 6 years ago it might have granted. The department's action here is consistent with what's called for in the city's 2021 climate action plan. That plan calls for a policy of preservation in development and infrastructure. And that's what we have here, infrastructure. Because climate resilience understands that we cannot continue to prioritize gray infrastructure over green infrastructure. We need both, and we need to find ways of doing both. So while the department doesn't yet have a formal policy of preservation per the climate action plan, it appears they're trying to comply with that call by denying this application. And really the only thing left is for the hearing officer and decision maker to uphold that effort. This is the only way we're going to start making the changes called for in the climate action plan that we need to become a resilient and sustainable and equitable city. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Michael Nolte. Michael, you should be able to speak and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, I just requested the hearing officer listen to the public since there's nobody from the project sponsor here. And that the staff have made an appropriate evaluation of the situation. I just hope the hearing officer learns how to better run the hearing as he goes along. So appreciate his due diligence in this matter. Thank you.
Do we have any more comments from the public?
There are no other hands.
Okay. Sarah, do you have any response to the general comments?
I have nothing additional to add.
Okay, thank you. Then I will consider this item closed. We will now proceed to hearing order 208-661 to consider the removal of 2 trees at 1610 Geary. Sarah, please go ahead.
Thank you. This is Sarah Stacy with Bureau of Urban Forestry. Again, this is order number 208-661 to consider removal of 2 street trees without replacement in situ adjacent to 1701 X Post Street. That's where they're physically located. The permit address is 1610 Geary Boulevard. Again, for clarity, the trees are located at 1701 Post Street, and the project plans to replace the 2 street trees on the 1500 block of Laguna Street where there are 2 empty basins. For this permit application, our staff, we approved the removal of the 2 trees and we received public protest. These are the 2 trees that are part of this removal application. They're 2 flowering cherry trees, ornamental trees. They are street trees. They're in the public right-of-way adjacent to the Japantown Plaza. The applicant is a city agency, Public Works. They have a project to restore this plaza. And through that project process, the Vision Zero and accessibility coordinator will look at the work scope and the project, and these trees were designated that they should be removed to help support Vision Zero, which is a city policy in place to help reduce vehicle and pedestrian accidents and reduce pedestrian deaths. With the idea that ultimately we would have 0 pedestrians or vehicle incidents in our roadways. This is an image that I took over the weekend. This shows Post Street, and the 2 red arrows show the 2 small cherry trees, street trees, that are the subject trees of this removal application. We did approve the removal of these trees based on the support for Vision Zero to improve some of the basically the sight lines to this pedestrian crossing. I do feel like this is a very busy area, and to me it is very visually, there's a lot, a lot going on here visually, where you can be distracted. One could argue that the trees can kind of block your view of pedestrians that are waiting at this kind of bulb out area. And they may also like shade the crosswalk so that there's not proper illumination of this pedestrian crosswalk area. And kind of just those factors play a role in reducing visibility of of pedestrians here. Our planting guidelines do allow trees to be planted in a bulb out, but it states that they have to be approved kind of by kind of an overview process with other agencies like SFMTA. Would have to look closely here to see if the trees would impact views of the traffic signals or the crosswalk. And I can't really speak to the history of that review and look back at how these trees ever got here in the first place. I am sorry, I can't speak to that. I'm coming from a place that the trees exist here. We did approve them for removal to support Vision Zero and to support this project, and that they're small trees and they will be replaced around the corner on Laguna Street. I have a few more images to show. This is tree 1. Again, it's an ornamental flowering cherry tree. It is a smaller size tree. The DBH is 7 inches. Our staff rated it as in fair condition. It does have some decline in the canopy there where some fine twigs are dying back. It just doesn't have kind of robust growth. But overall, I feel like this species is somewhat slow growing. And generally speaking, as a species for the urban forest, our department kind of sees this tree as not lending a lot of benefits to the urban forest. That being said, I do want to acknowledge kind of the cultural significance of the flowering cherry tree to Japantown in this community. Again, we approve the removal in support of Vision Zero and the disability access coordinators suggestion to remove these trees to improve sight lines to this pedestrian crossing. The trees will be replaced on Laguna Street, and I'll show those 2 basins. These are some additional images of that tree 1 taken over the weekend. It does, look here, and I agree it is a tree in fair condition. There's really no significant deficiencies. It's not a hazardous tree. It's not a dead, dying tree. Again, the removals to improve that sightline access to this pedestrian crossing. This is the second tree, tree site 2. It is a larger tree. The DBH is 9 inches. It's a tree in fair condition. Again, no significant deficiencies. It's not a hazardous tree. This tree has been slightly damaged by delivery trucks that park against the curb here. So it does have some kind of mechanical wounds to the trunk we'll see. You can see in the image on the left. But the trees sealing those wounds over, it's mostly just superficial cosmetic damage. The project's going to work with SFMTA to make sure in the future cargo and delivery trucks are restricted from parking here, to also uphold the improvements here for pedestrian safety. Some final images of that tree number 2. This is where the trees will be replaced on Laguna Street. This is in very close proximity to where the trees exist on Post. It's just around the corner on the Laguna frontage. And these are the 2 empty basins, site 1 and 2. And this is where the project would have the contractor plant 2 flowering cherry trees as replacement species here. Our department approved these trees, just to summarize, so that we could support Vision Zero and improve the pedestrian safety at this intersection, very busy intersection. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Do we have any comments from the public?
We have a hand raised by Josh. Go ahead. You should. Oops, I'm sorry. Hold on just a moment.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thanks. So from the presentation, it felt a little unclear if it was new construction or Vision Zero, or maybe it was both. And I am feeling really unclear on how these two teeny tiny trees are somehow responsible for pedestrian injuries or death, and certainly heard no statistics of how many people have been injured here and what was the determined cause. This photo shows a massive crosswalk, and also the photos show obstruction division are things like cars, trucks, mailboxes, utility poles. Are we going to remove all of those as well? Also, removing all of those obstructions just as a matter of science actually increases speed because people feel that there are no obstructions to their speeding through intersections. So anyway, how are we even going to enforce something like no trucks pulling over? Ask anyone who lives in San Francisco about how our traffic and emergency services are handling issues much more serious than a no parking zone. We are in no position to think that that is the solution. I just don't understand in what universe these trees are the problem. And if these trees can contribute to death, then we might as well cut down every tree in the city. These are what, 8 feet tall with shade the equivalent of an umbrella? Are we going to remove tall people holding umbrellas? This is what concerns me, is that this seems really weak, but also really precedential. If the department's going to fold and approve removal for these trees ostensibly for safety reasons, then it ought to be prepared to remove a lot more for the same reason. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Michael Nolte. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
First, I want to make a mention to the clerk. She's been writing in chat and asking if people can read what's being written in chat. I'll let you know that people can read, but they can't respond because chat is disabled. So
Yes, thank you. Someone did let me know that, one of our employees, and the director's office let me know that they did fix the chat feature. However, it may not be enabled in real time. So it will be slowly coming back, but thank you for letting me know.
okay, on to the hearing. If anything needs to be fixed in this scenario, it would be one, the sidewalk. I see the red in the red zone there. There's a big chunk of cement missing in the middle of the picture. Two, I would improve the basin of both trees. I'm a disabled person. I have a cane. And when you see cobblestone around the tree, and if I was not paying attention, I could walk and trip just on the cobblestone. So if you're going to make improvements, but don't kill trees. You're basically basically saying to me, what I heard from this presentation is that you're going to kill 2 trees and then plant 2 trees in another location where you should be planting the trees in the other location anyway. But no need to kill 2 trees in the process. So I haven't heard any real reason. I've actually been to this location multiple times. I don't feel unsafe. The trees don't, if you really want to make it more visible, paint the trees orange, the trunks orange, bright orange if you have a need to. I'm also a disabled advocate. I mean, a senior disabled advocate. I would, if you feel that there's a visual issue, actually red, because it's Japantown. Paint the trunks orange, red, or any befitting colors of the to demonstrate the celebration of the location, which is more the issue of this cultural district. This is a cultural district. Treat it like a cultural district. I don't see I'm actually amazed. Is there anybody on this call from the actual cultural district, or is this just falling through the cracks of some mishap department that has not really reached out to the cultural district? I think that this is again one of these things where the public is not really very well understanding what's going on here. Somebody that's been involved in cultural districts and community benefit districts, I'd like to hear their take on what's going on here too. And unfortunately, from my understanding in the past, since they're funded through the city, they just, sign off on stuff and not listen to the community. And the community speaking here today. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have John Nolte. Go ahead. You should be able to speak, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. First issue here is that was not discussed that this is a grant or whatever that came to DPW to fix the plaza, and therefore this is part of some money that they at the end of the cycle for redevelopment money for the UN Plaza, which is again another city agency, which would be fall under the redevelopment agency, which is now defunct. This is the end of their cycle, and then they're using this money to fix UN Plaza. So this is really what's going on here. Don't say everybody else, they're just pointing at 2 trees, but there's obviously, I'm sure that more to Public Works besides the removal possible, which I don't want, removal of these 2 trees, other issues that they will be addressing with the upgrades they're trying to do for for this plaza. The problem I have here is that, again, there's a business entity for all the businesses in UN Plaza. I don't hear them talking about it. Again, there's a cultural district there next to it. There's a major hotel, create a hotel. I mean, you have all these entities that are on this block and on the other side of because there's 2 sides to the plaza, not taking their time to discuss about these trees, and people are getting paid. There are multiple agencies that are involved, and I don't hear any of their executive directors or paid staff at this hearing. Therefore, it's obviously clear to me that the community is not, and all the paid staff are not interested in discussing about these trees, or they, as of this moment, they have not raised their hand and they haven't talked, or maybe they're waiting in the queue. I don't know. But as far as I'm concerned, these trees should stay and work around them, and also, like my brother stated, paint them red or something. These are cultural significant trees for the thing, and I didn't hear what the replacement trees would be
30 seconds.
on Laguna if you did replace them. So I would keep these mature trees where they're at. Thank you. And they seem to be striving very well, because you look across the street, there's similar trees that were planted at about the same time, and they're thriving too. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Callie Tito. You should be able to unmute yourself and speak.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning. I appreciate all your time. I'm just calling in because I'd like to call for the termination of Public Works employee John Dale Bretz. We need to protect our street vendors. We can't be going around attacking street vendors as public employees, as public servants. So I'm calling for the termination of John Dale Bretz, the San Francisco Public Works employee.
There are no other hands at this time. Hearing Officer Charlotta.
Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Sarah, did you have any response to any of the comments?
I will just say thank you to for all those public comments. I will just add that as far as our planting guidelines, we have a issued director's order in which all those planting guidelines are summarized. It does mention Vision Zero. It does say that trees do not have to be removed just because something is in violation of a planting guideline. That may not be a sufficient reason. And then as far as the bulb out here, that director's order doesn't prohibit trees in the bulb out. It only says that the trees have to go through kind of an overview process. So at the department level, I necessarily can't point to anything that says the trees have to be removed. Our staff level decision was, again, in support to try to support Vision Zero here. I believe the project, one of the project managers or team members is on the call. I would invite them to speak a little bit more if they would like. And then I have no further comment.
Okay, thank you. Do we
Okay.
have any additional comments from the public?
Yeah, yes, we have the hand raised by Marianne Koss, J. Marianne Koss. Go ahead and speak.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here in the hearing. I'm actually the project manager with Rec and Park, and I am working on the Japantown Peace Plaza renovation, which is it's currently right now being bid out. We're expecting bids in a few weeks, and then construction would be starting next year. And so since Sarah said, hey, Marion, speak up, I just wanted to share that we have had public meetings with the Japantown Task Force, Japantown Peace Plaza Committee on a monthly basis for probably the last 4 years, I believe. I took this over from another project manager 2 years ago. And these trees were brought to our attention, I want to say about maybe half a year ago. And since then, I did inform our committee and all the public that attends those meetings about the removal of these trees. We are removing trees on Japantown, and then we are planting cherry trees within Japantown. And we are just taking the recommendation from Public Works to support Vision Zero. And therefore, I'm here to state that we have been sharing this information with the community, and they are in support of the removal of these trees, understanding that they are significant and that there will be cherry trees within the plaza. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them. Thank you.
Do we have any additional comments?
This is Sarah Stacy with Bureau of Urban Forestry. There was a question about what replacement trees would be on Laguna. They would most likely be ornamental cherry trees that would be the replacement species, but they could also be fern pine, which is another species that is on post here and has kind of cultural significance and is relevant to this community as a species that is from Asia. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Cerise, do we have any additional hands up?
No other hands at this time.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for your comments on this order. Consider the matter closed. All right, moving on to the next item, hearing order 208, to consider the removal of 9 significant trees with replacement on private property at 175 Junipero Cerro. Sarah, please go ahead.
Hi, this is Sarah Stacy with Bureau of Urban Forestry. Again, this is order 208662 for the removal of 9 significant trees with replacement on private property. And the location is 175 Junipero Serra. Our staff, we approved the removal of this application and we received public protests. I'm going to show you images of the significant trees. A significant tree, to remind you, is a tree that is on private property, but it is protected by Article 16, the Public Works Urban Forestry Ordinance. As a protected tree, it has to meet one of 3 size criteria. It has to be 20 feet in height or 15 feet in spread, or it has to have a trunk that measures 12 inches in diameter when measured about 4.5 feet off the ground. And these trees met those conditions, so they were protected as significant trees, thus requiring a removal permit. The applicant applied to remove these trees because they are in decline, they're unhealthy, and they wish to replace them. Our staff approved the removal and agreed. These trees are, you'll see, in obvious decline. They're not healthy. The condition is poor, and we approved their removal and replacement. So I'm just going to show images of the 9 trees. They're camphor trees, which is a tree that isn't really too common in the city. There's not a huge population of them. I'm more familiar with them in San Jose and Fremont and other parts of the Bay, but it's not a super common species in San Francisco, and that may have to do with the microenvironment, their ability to thrive here. So this was site 1. You can see here the tree, I would say, is more than 50% dead, a significant dieback. There's not a healthy crown here of foliage that's producing really any benefits. So we recommend removal and replacement. This is site 2. This tree is not as in poor condition, but you can see decline in the canopy. It's not a tree with great vigor. Its canopy isn't really even that full for this species. I would say generally, if you saw a healthy specimen of this species, it would have a crown diameter of at least 25 to possibly 30 feet. So this tree is just kind of trying to hang in there and survive, and we see decline in the canopy. It's not healthy. It's starting to thin that canopy as well. This is site 3. I've tried to outline here all the dieback and thinning. Again, an unhealthy tree. This is site 4. Here, again, an image to show that dieback in the crown. Lots of thinning, just low vigor overall. These trees are not in good condition. This is an image that shows trees 5, 6, and 7. This is the only image I had available. You can see here the dieback and thinning in the tree crown. This is site number 8, a tree in very poor condition. There's hardly any vigor here. It's not providing a lot of canopy benefit. You can see all the twig dieback there. It's just obviously a tree not providing much benefit at all, and we recommend removal and replacement. And then finally, sorry for the error on the slide. This is the last site, site 9. And again, just a tree in poor condition. It's not a specimen that really represents what this tree should look like. Poor health, reduced vigor, and in decline. So again, overall, our staff, these 9 trees, we approve them for removal to be consistent with other cases. They're not healthy, they're in poor condition. Our department supports their removal in the approval of this application and requires 9 trees to be replaced. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Do we have any public comments?
We have a hand by Robert Mann. Go ahead, you should be able to speak.
Okay, hi, yes, this is Robert Mann from the Balboa Terrace Homes Association, and just we maintain about 60 trees in our properties. And for the last 6 or 7 years, we've been trying to save these trees through soil treatments, others, and the camphor trees are just not well suited to fog and wet conditions. And we have about $10,000 budgeted right now to replace these trees with Arbutus annito or strawberry arbutus and flowering gum, and which do very, very well in the neighborhood. And we want to proceed before the rains begin on that work. And those are all my comments, unless there are other questions.
Thank you.
Do we have any other hands up?
We do have members of the public. Go ahead, John Nolte.
Good morning. My first issue is here, it's an association, therefore that means the immediate property owners pay into this association to maintain the trees within the boundaries of the association. And therefore, hearing one person on the board or associated with the association speaking and not more people involved, because when I first saw this kind of looked like a medium to me, because it's in multiple, these trees are located in front of multiple in front of multiple street plots. For one's from someone's front of the church and another street. So I was questioning whether this was a medium, and also this does not, whether or not this falls under Public Works, because they would be in control of the medium versus the association. So that's a gray area, and I could not find these this location also. The information on it to find proof that this is actually within the association's boundaries, or is it in Public Works right away? So I have questions about who actually is the property owner of where these trees are, and is this the city or not the city, because of the locations, and looking at the rest of the frontage of these street on Junipero, why the association is responsible, and also why Public Works is not responsible, and why Public Works is not helping the association dealing with these trees, because they are significant trees and they are in front of multiple parcels within the boundaries, I assume, of this association. Thank you. And I would appreciate that they, we never heard about how big these trees, since they say that they're going to replace 9 trees and they have $10,000 to replace them, how big would be the replacement trees, and how long would they take to grow back? And also, would it be even worth the time to replace them, because of
30 seconds.
they apparently are not, they can water the grass pretty well, but they can't keep the trees growing.
Thank you. And we have Josh. Go ahead.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, I just wanted to take a minute to actually thank the applicant for what sounds like years of effort to keep these trees alive. For having a planting plan and a budget to support that plan. I do think 10,000 for 9 trees is probably going to be a bit of a stretch, but maybe if it's done right, it's possible, and I certainly hope so. And also thank the association for their attention to what may be a more appropriate species for this microclimate. And the last point is that I see from the photos, there does seem to be a lack of canopy, but I would like to ask that there be a nest survey done prior to any removals. Those aren't always done. Sometimes we think it's not necessary, but birds are really good at hiding themselves. So if there is any way to ensure that is please conducted prior to any removals. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have I believe, did I write it down? Mr. Shalata, each of the other hands have already spoken. How do you want to proceed?
Well, I guess at this point, Sarah, do you have any response to their comments?
Hi, this is Sarah Stacy with the Bureau of Urban Forestry. Our staff, we support the project's application to remove and replace these 9 significant trees. We identify these as significant trees because they are located on private property. And we support the species recommendation by Robert Mann. I agree with the Corymbia or the other species that they would do well here as replacement trees.
Thank you. If members of the public have already spoken, do you have something to add that's specific to the clarification that Sarah just provided? If not, then please retain your comments for the end for general questions and answer.
Mr. Robert Mann raised his hand again. Do you want me to unmute him? Do you want me to go ahead
Yes,
and
please
unmute
go
him?
ahead.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Mann.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah, I
we
just wanted
can.
to say, I wanted to answer a couple questions. They're all 24-inch box trees that will be coming in. And we've had that fully bid by our contractors, so I think we'll be able to hit it under the budget. And you know, we appreciate all the comments, and just to emphasize this, in the adjacent strip, we have allocated through other funding about $50,000 to plant 50 plus trees in the median along Junipero Serra, and that will be happening over the next 2 years. So together with this new planting and the planting on Junipero Serra, we'll have a lovely area which will significantly improve the canopy along Junipero Serra, and also create a wind buffer that will make it easier for these new trees in this area to survive the strong winds that we get in the area. So that's my last comment, and thank you so much.
Thank you for that clarification. Cerise, do we have any new hands up?
No other hands.
Okay. Thank you everyone for your comments and presentation on this order. I will consider the item closed. The next item on the agenda is hearing order 208663 to consider the removal of 1 tree with replacement adjacent to 2726 Pine Street. Please go ahead, Sarah.
This is Sarah Stacy with Bureau of Urban Forestry. This is order 208663 for the removal of 1 street tree with replacement. We approved the removal of this tree and believe it will be replaced if there's no conflict found with underground utilities. Otherwise, we'll locate a site, a replacement site in the proximity. We approved the removal and we did receive public protests. This is on Pine Street, a very busy corridor for traffic. It helps cars get across the city, headed in the western direction. This is a Chinese elm, And this species is very common along the pine corridor, in addition to some ficus trees and Brisbane box, but Chinese elm is the primary species. But this tree at this location, we received a service request reporting a concern about it and its health. So we responded and identified that this tree should be removed through our maintenance program. It would be a one-off removal, so not through the routine scheduled maintenance, but that we'd have to have an internal crew schedule the removal here, kind of off schedule. You can see here a lot of dieback in the tree's crown. It's a mature tree. It's approximately 35 feet tall. It has an 18-inch diameter trunk. We approved it because of its poor condition and decline, and because it represents a hazard over this busy corridor. These photos are from April, so there could be perhaps a tendency to think, well, the tree looks like this because it maybe hasn't quite finished leafing out for the season, and maybe we should wait through the summer to see how it's doing. This hearing wasn't scheduled during the summer. It took us until August to get it scheduled, and then this was rescheduled because of a administrative calendar issue. So we did take some additional photos of the tree, and I'll share those. But that is decline in the upper canopy. It has dieback. Here, these are photos from July. Shows significant thinning in the crown, and just the tree is in a process of decline, and we believe it should be removed before the winter storms, where this tree could fall into the street. Just one last image of that dieback in the crown. This tree's not providing significant benefits because of the reduced vigor in dieback. We do believe it's in poor health and it should be removed. We're trying to be supportive of the public's concern for safety, and we believe this removal will help address that. The tree will be replaced in situ if possible, if there are no conflicts with underground utilities, or we'll have to locate a replacement site and add this tree to a delayed planting list. So to be consistent with other cases, we approved this tree for removal, and we did receive public protests. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Now open the floor for public comments.
We have Josh, go ahead. You should be able to unmute.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I want to make public comment, and I hope this makes it into the decision. Lobbying hard for a large species replacement. This is a location that has no overhead utilities, and few things crush my soul more than seeing teeny tiny trees planted in spaces that have no overhead utilities, while other trees are trimmed to the bone by PG&E if they even brush against a low voltage power line. So if we could please consider a large species replacement for this tree, that would be my comment that I hope makes it into the decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Ooh. Shoot. We're having the middle of the FEMA test, emergency testing. So just bear with us just a moment. Okay, Mr. Charlotta, there are no other hands at this time.
Okay. Sarah, do you have any response to the comments we received?
Hi, this is Sarah Stacy, Bureau of Urban Forestry. For Pine Street, yes, we can select an appropriate species for this location. It would be almost an in-kind replacement, so a Chinese elm, a variety that we know can do well. The other species for this corridor is the Brisbane box, and almost 95% of the time those trees do very, very well and have little disease issues. So it would be one of those two species. And the Brisbane box is a little bit more columnar slender than kind of the arch base-like overhanging canopy the elm provides, which I think makes Pine Street so special. I would try to promote the Chinese elm. That's just kind of my editorial comments, but yes, of course, we would select what would be a future large size tree for this corridor. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any new hands up?
No new hands.
Okay. Thank you everyone for your comments on this item. I'll consider this item closed. All right, next item on the list is order number 208664 to consider the removal of one street tree with replacement at 1493 Kansas Street. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Bureau of Urban Forestry, Sarah Stacy. This order is 208664 to consider the removal of one street tree with replacement at the property of 1493 Kansas Street. We approved the removal and we received public protest. This was a removal application we received, application 794-599 from the adjacent property owner. I will just for clarity say that this is a street tree, even though it looks like it's in maybe the front yard. The right-of-way at this location is very wide or large on both frontages of this corner property. It's 15 feet on the Kansas Street frontage and varies along the 26th Street frontage. But it is, I just want to say it is a street tree because it is in the public right of way, and as so it did require a removal application. This tree is what we believe is a sprout that just kind of volunteered itself and grew here. The property owner wants to remove it. It's a tree in the wrong place, wrong species, wrong place. As we saw on Pine Street, this tree can grow very large, and just for this placement, it's not suitable right up against the retaining wall and at this location. That's why we approved it for removal. We suggest a smaller type replacement tree, kind of an understory tree, such as a redbud or smaller ornamental tree that will be more suitable here to maintain. Here's a few more images of the tree. Again, we believe this wasn't a tree that was purposely planted here. It was just a volunteer, either by the seed landing here and growing and being allowed to kind of grow up until this time. Or it's from an old sprout, old stump there or something. It's just volunteered itself here. We don't believe this tree belongs here. Again, this tree can grow very large. It would require a lot of maintenance to maintain this tree here at this location without more damage to the retaining wall and this person's private property. The tree also has codominant stems, which is a little hard to see in the photo, but what that means is the two structural stems are almost equal size and diameter, and that can create structural issues. Of course, it could be pruned, but again here, to allow this tree to stay here, it's going to require a significant amount of maintenance, and it's just not practical and not a good situation for us to keep this tree here. Really nothing else here, just additional photos. This shows again that property here, how they have the concrete retaining wall. Some of this would be private property up to a certain point, but again, this tree actually falls in the public right of way. It's again, we believe just a volunteer that grew here. We should remove it now and allow the property owner to replace a specimen that would be more suitable for this location. They already have a fair amount of landscaping and vegetation, but so that a tree could be replaced here, they could choose something small, and I've identified a possible redbud, but there could be a few other smaller sized trees that could do well. This is just an aerial image that shows the property, 1493 Kansas. It's this corner property. You can see there's an entire row of ficus street along 26th Street. None of those are being removed at this time. It's the Chinese elm right at the corner, very too close to the retaining wall and not in a good location, that we support its removal with a more suitable replacement tree. So to be consistent with other sites, in other removal applications, we approved the removal. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any comments from the public?
Yes, we have Michael Nolte. Go ahead, you should be able to speak.
Yes, a little confusing presentation. It's just because if the tree is in the public right of way, then the retaining wall is in the public right of way, and then so who owns the retaining wall, and who would repair the retaining wall if for some reason it got messed up in some way. So it's kind of like who you're probably saying in the real in some underlying statement here is that you want to remove the tree because the city would also be responsible for the retaining wall being disrupted in some manner by the tree. So my next question would be, the tree, if it's replaced, would it be further back from the retaining wall, or are we going to have the same problem again? Where can you show in it by an arrow or something where a tree would be put in, or is it not going to be replaced? Maybe I missed that part. So those are my questions. There seems to be some issues about property line, and then where would be the appropriate place to put a tree and replacement to prevent further damage to the retaining wall. Thank you.
Do we have any other comments or questions?
Yes, thank you, Michael Nolte. Now we have John Nolte. Go ahead, you should be able to speak.
Yes, I see some confusing information not being shown that is pertinent to this tree to the right, where the going up the side street here. There's also a street pole, and above the tree you have utility lines. So of course, if it can't grow too high, because then PG&E would want to cut it back for those utility lines, and also I see possible lines that are going into the house. So the issue is then when you move to the side on the street, have a walkway. So therefore, I don't know how you could consider this a street tree because it's I assume that's what it is, a street tree, because all those ficus trees along the side of the building are there's no sidewalk. So I have a question about, is this actually part, as you see these squares you just show now, on the other side of that white line, is this the property owner's property, or is this the city's property? Whose property is it? That's all I'm hearing is the address, but indirectly, is it part of this parcel of 1493 Kazan Street? Who owns where the tree is at? Whose permit is it? Which is not being discussed. I don't hear the property owner on the call. I don't hear anything that again, this is about another prior presentation I made a point about who owns these parcels that you have trees on, and there's no entity that has a name attached to it when I look them up. So this is another one, a similar example. And if you look further to the, you'll see it's not well developed in this neighborhood, sidewalks and so forth. So it's very confusing about how the street is ended here. And also it may affect the stop sign to the right. You have a lot of things that are going on in this corner here, and how you're going to replant that tree so it don't conflict with all your other planning, how you plant a tree. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Josh, go ahead.
Thanks, Cerise. Yeah, I think this is the last item on the agenda. So before we all go our separate ways today, I just wanted to make sure that I acknowledge and show some appreciation for the hearing officer, Cerise, for your sort of thankless work in doing all of this and all of the stuff you do behind the scenes, and also especially Sarah Stacy and all of the urban forestry inspectors at the Bureau of Urban Forestry. You have difficult jobs, and I think that you are understaffed and undervalued. And I just wanted to thank you for the work that you do to preserve and grow our city's urban canopy.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Charlotta, there are no other hands at this time.
Okay. Sarah, did you wish to address any of the comments?
I can't speak for why the applicant's not here to address why they applied to remove the tree. I support its removal. Our department supports its removal. This is a street tree, just to be clear. It's in the public right-of-way. This last image shows the white lot line of what is 1493, the corner parcel. Everything outside of that white lot line to what would be the left and bottom, what would be the west direction and south direction. All of that is public right-of-way. So this tree is protected as a street tree. Properties are allowed to have what is known as major encroachments into the public right-of-way, and that's what that retaining wall is. They have a major encroachment into the public right-of-way. They're likely assessed kind of an annual fee for that structure that's in the public right-of-way. That retaining wall is not maintained by Public Works. It's maintained by the property owner. This removal is consistent with other cases where that tree is not in the right place. It's too close to the retaining wall. We're suggesting a replacement tree that is more suitable, following the guidelines of right tree, right place. And that tree would be set back, at least 3 feet. 4 to 5 feet would be even more suitable depending on the species, and could be planted in what would be kind of the front yard. It may end up being a tree that becomes a future significant tree because it ends up being on the property, the private property side. There isn't, I haven't suggested replacement of this tree on 26th Street. It would be, again, in what that is kind of the front yard of 1493 Kansas, and it would be a small understory tree that would be relatively low maintenance and have, less conflict with those utility lines, high voltage lines, not like this Chinese elm tree, if it's allowed to stay there. So I believe this is a reasonable removal, and a suitable tree can be planted in the front yard area, whether it's in the right of way or it becomes on private property, a future significant tree, or even just a landscaping plan. That's reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you for your clarification. Cerise, do we have any new hands up?
No, there are no other hands.
Okay, thank you everyone for your comments on this item. I'll consider this item closed. All right, that was the last item on the agenda. I'm going to open the floor once more for any public comments on any items on the agenda or other matters not covered on the agenda. This is specifically for those who might have come late or didn't have a chance to speak. So if you've already spoken in the open question at the beginning, please do not raise your hand again.
There are no other guests at this time. Everyone has spoken.
Okay, then thank you everyone for your comments. Thank you for taking the time to attend this hearing and participate. If there are no other comments, I'm closing this hearing.